Everybody, welcome back to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Also heard on the radio, KDON 101.5 FM in Las Vegas, as well as 98.5 The Bet. We appreciate you guys being with us. Do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black Today. And then don't forget to rate and review as well. We appreciate that very much. If you're watching us, hello there. Thanks for watching us on whatever platform you're watching us. The video brought to you by the great people over at BetUS. Don't forget, with BetUS, still got a lot of football season left. You got all the big bowl games coming out, the playoff games. You also have the NFL playoffs coming. And guess what? We're going to get you a 150% sign-up bonus from the folks at BetUS. That's right. You can get 150%. Just use the promo code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. Go bet your football where Mo and I bet our football, and that is, of course, BetUS. Great folks over there. We'll tell you a little bit more about them later. Scott Gulbransen with you, along with my co-host. That is Mr. Mo Moten. He is the senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. Also, the Raiders columnist at sportsnot.com, where you can catch my work as well. And you can follow Mo on x.com at Mo Moten, MoEMoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is SNB Today. Mo, Raiders, they won 2 in a row, man. I mean, you get to break up this team. They're going to be, are they going to change minds with this? I don't know. But at least the Raiders have twice in a row now beat teams they should beat.
I guess you could say teams that they should beat. These are the two. If you remember a month ago, I told you these are the 2 games that they were going to win. The Jaguars and the Saints. Because as I said before, you put 2 bad teams on the football field and anything could happen. Now, I don't think the Raiders are a terrible football team. This is the team. This is what I expected them to look like when I picked them to win 7 or 8 games. But of course, they just went on this crazy losing streak. So it skewed their win-loss record. But when you're going up against an injury-riddled team with a backup quarterback, and I know the Raiders are also an injury-riddled team with a backup quarterback in a sense, even though I think Aiden McConnell should have started the season. You're going to win football games when the team actually gives A-plus effort, and that's what they've done under Antonio Pierce. That's the one thing that I could say about Pierce, is that he has his guys ready to play. Of all the saving things that Antonio Pierce can say to retain his job is, we came to play for the most part for the entire season. Now, he called out his guys to make business decisions in week 3. I get that. But even with the season loss and the playoffs out of reach, his team was prepared to at least give maximum effort. And that's the least you could say about this football team under Pierce.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because when you said he had them prepared, I would disagree with the prepared from the football perspective, but from the desire to come out and play hard, they haven't lost that edge. And a lot of people say, well, they're professional football players. They should come to play, blah, blah, blah. That's true, but you can see it around the league. When you work that hard and things go off the rails, and we've seen it with other teams, sometimes it just starts to devolve into people being really selfish and all of that. And I agree with you. I think that Antonio Pierce, the one thing you cannot criticize him for is keeping the folks in that locker room at least wanting to play for each other and play for him. Now, I don't, again, as you said, Mo, I don't think that that's enough to keep his job, and we'll get into that in a second. But the thing that I loved about this game, we saw so many of the things that I think have held the Raiders back in this game too, but we also saw why, Luke Getsy was such a bad option, because Scott Turner, no, I don't think he is a top flight A1A offensive coordinator in this league, but he is better. And we saw this. They came out with a really good, I think, plan against this injury-riddled Saints team. And that offense, Mo, I was so impressed with the ball control. Now, they couldn't capitalize and score in the red zone, or even when they got close to the red zone, a lot of 4 field goals, clearly. But I thought that their ability to run the ball, Amir Abdullah with a career day, of course, to me, that was the best progress I've seen, I think, from that offense in quite a while.
I said it about Bleacher Report Live. That's probably the best game the Raiders have played all season. And I just want to clarify the preparation thing. What I mean by preparation is, when you look at the Raiders and they come out in their first 2 drives, we said this all season, they even during their losing streak, they come out and they usually score within their first 2 drives. They are prepared to play. It's just that the attention to the lack of attention to detail and the lack of the ability to counter what the other team does was the biggest problem. Was a bigger problem than preparation. Now I know the players complained about the scheduling of practices, but for the most part, you could say that the Raiders were ready to play. Now, was there poor execution? Obviously. Like as I said, couldn't counter some of what the other teams have do after the second, third quarter. Absolutely. Poor decisions made during the game. Absolutely. That's a whole different conversation. But I don't think that beating two of the worst teams in the league with backup quarterbacks, one being a rookie fifth rounder and Spencer Rattler, changes anything for me. But I'm not the one making the decisions. And I think that if the Raiders were to beat the Chargers with their starters on the field, because I think the Chargers are going to go for the 5th seed, simply because the way the Texans are playing at that 4th seed, I think if you're a playoff team, you want that 5th seed. So I think the Raiders are going to see the Chargers starters on Sunday if the 5th seed is up for grabs, because the Steelers will play on Saturday and the Steelers do win. They're going to get that 5th seed. But let's just say the Raiders do see the Chargers starters on Sunday. If the Raiders win that game to win 3 straight, I'm just telling you, it's not my fault, but I'm just telling you, it could sway Mark Davis's mind to say, look, we finished the season strong, because remember what Mark Davis said. He said he wanted to see progress. About 3 weeks ago, when asked about Antonio Pierce and the team's status, he said he wanted to see progress. And regardless of how the win looks, winning 3 straight after being 2-12 or 2-11, whatever the record was, is progress. If you end the season with the winning streak, no matter how it looks, it is progress. So
yeah,
that would answer Davis's, call for progression.
Yeah, and progress is progress, but how much is enough? And I think that beating 2 horribly bad teams is not, to me. And yeah, if they were to beat the Chargers starters, that would be a quality win. Right as of right now, the Raiders have only beaten 1 team with a winning record, and that, of course, was early in the season against Baltimore. So, to me, beating these 2 teams, and obviously any road victory is a big one, even if you're playing a bad team. So I get that. I just think that it would be disastrous. But we have a caller later who talks about this, and I think it's people who lead on emotion often make decisions that aren't in their best interests. And I think that's exactly what Mark Davis did with Antonio Pierce last year. And if he were to do it again, I think it'll set this franchise back even further. A franchise that I don't think is going to be able to, now, could prove me wrong, get that franchise quarterback this season. And they're going to have to punt down the road again on that once again, and add into that a lack of coaching. I think of coach that can come in and turn things around. You saw what Washington did, right, with Jaden Daniels and a head coach, quarterback and a coach. Now, did they make other moves? Yes. But to your point that you brought me around on several weeks ago, which is the Raiders aren't, yes, they have a terrible record. They've played terrible football a lot this year. They are not a terrible team. There are some core players there that you can build around if you have the right coach, if you're the right quarterback. And I just think that even if they beat the Chargers, if Mark Davis and Tom Brady, who I think will be heavily involved, if they don't think about how you upgrade even at the coaching position with what you're facing in your own division, it could be very, very disastrous for this organization. So we'll see how it works. And that's the thing too, Mo, you talk about Antonio Pierce. And while he doesn't have the issues, not even close, I mean, it's the exact opposite that Josh McDaniels had in the locker room, i.e. the players don't hate him. They have the same record. Josh McDaniels was fired. He had a 9-16 record. That's the same record that Antonio Pierce has now, including his term as interim last year. And I mentioned beating 2 of the worst teams here down the stretch, as well as beating 1 team with a winning record this year. That's where, and I asked it on the postgame show too, Mo, which is I don't see, what do you see, to your point about Mark Davis saying progression, great, but honestly, no matter where you sit on Antonio Pierce, what could you say about him that says, yeah, he's the right guy? Here's what I saw in 2024, other than players liking him and not quitting, which I don't think is enough. What else have you seen that says, yeah, we should give this guy another chance?
Nothing on my part. I've already said that.
That's a rhetorical question for you.
This is not going to change. This is not going to change my mind, regardless of what happens. I'm not. And the point I made on my Bleacher Report live Sunday night was, you're trying to catch the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen, Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and now Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh in the playoffs. And it looks like, if Kansas City rests their starters, that the Denver Broncos were going to be in the playoffs with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. You're trying to catch those teams. If you're hiring Antonio Pierce because you beat the Jaguars, Saints, and maybe let's say they beat the even if they beat the Chargers backups, you're not using those teams as a barometer. The barometer is Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. You're trying to chase those teams. Now, if you're trying to hire a head coach to beat the worst teams in the league with a backup quarterback, then fine. You'll be happy with Antonio Pierce. But if you're trying to catch the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs, and now the Chargers and Broncos in your own division, you should take a bigger swing and try to find an upgrade. That's just me, regardless of what happens. But as I said, I'm not the one making the decisions here. And I think the way Mark Davis has run this organization, and I know Tom Brady's going to be involved, but the way Mark Davis has run this organization, you can see the Raiders winning 3 straight and Mark Davis saying, you know what? I think Antonio Pierce has time to grow. I think he's just inexperienced, and this is just his first year. Let's see what he has in his second year, because let's remember, as I said not too long ago, Jeremy Fowler hinted that Antonio Pierce is under contract probably for 2 years. So I can see Mark Davis totally saying, well, after these 3 wins, we'll give Antonio Pierce 1 more year. He has 1 more year. If he reportedly has 1 more year, we'll give him 1 more year and see if there's growth there. He was inexperienced. It was his first year. Let's give him a shot. I can see him saying that to Tom Brady. Now, will Tom Brady push back on that? You know, that's another discussion behind closed doors we'll never know about.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is how much, and we don't know the answer to this. We're all just guessing because we have no details, and I don't know that we'll get many details until it starts happening. How much power will Tom Brady have? You know, is Mark Davis going to say, hey, Tom, yeah, you got to get it approved by me, but I'm going to let you work with Telesco, Tom Brady working with Tom Telesco, the Toms, and you're going to come to me and tell me what you want to do. And then I'll ask you questions, but it's going to be your decision. If that's the case, then I think there's almost no chance that Antonio Pierce comes back. If Mark Davis is heavily involved and wants to make the final decision, I agree. He makes emotional decisions, which have set this franchise back several times. We've seen it, both good and bad, right? So we'll see how it all works out. But either way, we'll find out here in a couple weeks, I think. So we have that going for us. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to get to a conversation I want to have with Mo on Brock Bowers. Wow, what a day he had in New Orleans. What a season he's had. I want to just put that into perspective and talk a little bit about how it could have even been better. How could it have been better? We'll talk about that as we come back here. Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast, also heard on the radio in Las Vegas, and our video brought to you by our good friends over at BetUS. Don't go anywhere. Mo, Scott, coming right back. Hey, everybody. Scott Gulbransen with Silver and Black today. I want to tell you about our good friends at BetUS and the amazing offer they have for you as a viewer of Silver and Black today. That's right. Wherever you're watching us, you can check out BetUS. If you haven't bet your football there before, you're missing out, because guess what? Not only do they have great odds, do they have a great mobile app and website, but they also give you a personal account manager. Yes, you could do that. And it's phenomenal. So make sure you do that. But BetUS, if you haven't gone to bet with them, they have everything you need when it comes to football, basketball, hockey, politics. I mean, dude, you name it, and BetUS is going to do it. But more than that, and even better for you, is the fact that because of their sponsorship here of Silver and Black today, 150% sign-up bonus, $2,000. Not only that, but on your second and third deposit up to $2,000, they're going to give you 125% bonus. All you need to do is use the promo code YouTube1. That's YouTube150 to get the special offer here from Silver and Black today. And again, if you haven't gone to BetUS, you got to do it. I love these guys. They are huge supporters here of the show, and we love it. And again, get that 150% sign-up bonus. What are you waiting for? It's getting down to playoff time. Raiders only got 2 games left if you like betting on your Raiders. But also, you got the playoffs, Super Bowl. You have the NBA going on. You have so much happening. So make sure you check out our friends at BetUS. And again, 150% sign-up bonus. Use the promo code YouTube150. Welcome back. Segment number 2 here on Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Scott Gulbransen, Moten Back with you. Do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. And we appreciate that very much. Don't forget to rate and review as well. Also, if you are watching us on video, thanks to the great people over at BetUS. Been a great sponsor all season long. I've had just a great time dealing with the people there, betting football there. It's been awesome. Make sure you check them out. Get your 150% sign-up bonus using the promo code YouTube150. All right, Mo, let's get into Brock Bowers. Wow, 2 records Brock Bowers breaks. Not only 2 records did he break, he broke a 63-year-old record of Mike Ditka from 1961. That was even before I was born, Mo. That's how long ago it was. The rookie reception for tight ends, he beats Mike Ditka's record. Not only that, so then he decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to then, with my 77, or with the receptions for 108 yards, I'm going to then break the just a year-old record. So opposite ends of the spectrum. Puka Nacua last year, he beat his 105 reception for a rookie. That's every position. So wide receivers, tight ends, everything in the third quarter yesterday. And that record stood for just 1 season. But that shows you just the kind of season that Brock Bowers has. Just to put it into perspective, Mo, he's 6th in the league in receiving overall. Who's first? Jamar Chase was 1,612 yards. Justin Jefferson of the Vikings, 1,479 yards. To compare him to another wide receiver that gets a lot of credit, even though his team has had a really bad year, CeeDee Lamb has just 20 more yards receiving than Brock Bowers does. Mo, when we talked about this on draft night and we talked about it subsequent months, Brock Bowers, he may be listed as a tight end, but he really is an offensive Swiss Army knife. And I think this year shows how valuable he can be because you can move him all over the field, use him in the slot, use him out wide, use him as an H-back, use him as even in the backfield as a running back sometimes. This guy, I think the limits to his ability we have not seen yet, and it's going to be fun to watch. But talk about your impression of Brock Bowers. And we knew he was going to be good, but man, he has far exceeded any expectations anyone had for him.
Speak for yourself, Scott. One of my takes on draft night, age like fine wine. I think we had Chip Towers on.
Yep.
And Chip Towers and I were saying Brock Bowers is going to be a Hall of Famer. And you were like, pump the brakes. And Chip Towers laid it out for everyone. And credit to Chip Towers for coming on our show and just giving the skinny on Brock Bowers and what he does best. And he basically said, we asked him what could Brock Bowers work on? And he was one of those, it was one of those situations where it's like, well, if you're nitpicking, I guess, I mean, people criticize his blocking, and I tried to dispel those notions. Now he's going to be known for his pass catching. He talked about the records he broke. He also broke the Raiders franchise record for catches in the season, which was held by Darren Waller from the 2020 campaign. So on draft night, I said straight out, he's going to be asked to catch the football, and he's going to be valuable, and he's going to be a value in that area. Now, he became more valuable once Davante Adams asked for a trade, and that's what boosted his numbers. Not to say that Brock Bowers wouldn't have been great if Davante Adams was there, but you have to understand that Davante Adams was there. A lot of those targets that would have gone to Brock Bowers probably also, he's splitting those with Davante Adams. So, got a boost from the Davante Adams trade, but nonetheless, you can still see he's going to be a multi-time All-Pro in this league. He should be an All-Pro this year. I made a strong case that he deserves strong consideration for Offensive Rookie of the Year, though I do acknowledge that Jaden Daniels should be the front runner. The guy is making game-winning plays almost on an every other week basis. So Jaden Daniels is probably going to win it, plays a more important position. But you can't overlook what Brock Bowers has done. I think I had to look this up, but I'm pretty sure he has broken more records than Jaden Daniels when it comes to
Oh, yeah.
individual performances. So Brock Bowers is the guy you're building around in your offense. Of course, the Raiders, still have a need at wide receiver, in my opinion, on the outside. They got Jacoby Myers there, Trey Tucker there, but Trey Tucker's not a high value receiver. You still want a wide receiver there, but you're building that offense now going forward around Brock Bowers.
Now, Mo, I mean, listen, more is always better than less, right? So
Yes.
let me ask you this theoretical question, though, because yes, you have examples of it. For example, in Cincinnati, where at least for this season, because I think he'll be gone next season, but you have T. Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, right? You have two guys who could technically be number one receivers on any NFL team. With Brock Bowers and his ability with the Raiders, does that make finding a quote unquote number one receiver, meaning that high draft pick, high money, can you go a little bit less than that? Can you get a guy who's maybe a tweener between a 1 and a 2, and not be as concerned with finding that big guy on the outside, or would you still do that?
You can go get a guy who's not necessarily a 1, just don't pay him wide receiver 1 money.
Exactly.
Just make sure the money matches what that player is. So if you're going to go out and get T. Higgins, he's probably going to make the most money among the free agent wide receivers. So he's going to have a bunch of offers. I've already read that the Patriots are willing to go all in on bringing him to New England to help Drake May. So the Patriots are probably going to be willing to outbid most teams for T. Higgins if he does hit the free agent market. But if you're the Raiders, you're not saying, oh, we must get T. Higgins. It'll be great to have T. Higgins and Brock Bowers, don't get me wrong. But because you have Brock Bowers, what he's able to do with 3 starting quarterbacks, by the way, that's the other reason Brock Bowers has been so impressive. He did it with 3 backup. He did it with 3 what we would call backup quarterbacks. He had Gardner Minshew, he had Aiden O'Connell, he had Desmond Ridder, and still broke all these records. So with the wide receiver position, it is a need, but is it a top priority? I would say no. Again, you can build this thing around Brock Bowers, and by the way, Jacoby Myers is pretty good. He was a number 1, and Jacoby Myers was a number 1 wide receiver in New England. Struggled to get in the end zone, but still a quality wideout at the position, quality wideout. And you can go forward with a Brock Bowers Jacoby Myers combination and bring in or draft a wide receiver and develop that wide receiver behind those two and still be fine.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up, because I think if I'm Tom Telesco, the Raiders have so many other needs, and we talk about, of course, need number 1 being quarterback, but they want to strengthen offensive line. They got to strengthen the defensive line. They have all needs on defense too. So to me, it's great as a GM. I know they have a lot of money, but don't let that throw you out there. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't you have to spend it all on certain people and big name people and big dollar people. But I think that drafting, I think in this day and age, drafting young wide receivers, and you hit on some of them and some of them you don't, right? But I think that there's more opportunity there with Brock Bowers there. That gives you, I think, pause to go after, and not that they would get him, but a T. Higgins and have to pay top dollar for a wideout when you can go get one in the college ranks, knowing that you have a guy who's already almost gonna have 1,200 yards, I believe, by the end of next week, as a tight end / whatever you want to call him. So to me, that's great. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to build around your team, to do other things with that money, especially with some high profile positions like quarterback that you need to address. You also need to get a young running back. All that stuff, to me, it just gives Tom Telesco and the Raiders the opportunity to do that. When you look, and you mentioned the quarterback situation with Brock Bowers, that's what blows my mind, Mo. And I was watching the game and I'm thinking to myself, and again, what ifs, we're not playing in what ifs, but if you think about it, if they would have gotten a Jaden Daniels, if they would have gotten a Drake May or a Michael Penix Jr., who played pretty well as a green rookie in the NFL, can you imagine what Brock Bowers would have done? Now, again, you mentioned the Devontae Adams trades, that certainly helped him with targets, but can you imagine what he would do with a very dynamic, athletic quarterback that can wheel and deal a little more than we've seen from the Raiders?
He probably could have been in the running for the Triple Crown receiving title. Now, Jamar Chase is going for that title right now because I believe he leads the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns.
Yep.
But without a bona fide number 1 wide receiver, and your Brock Bowers is your top option, it's possible he could have went for that Triple Crown as a tight end, which would have been incredible So you would hope that the Raiders can find an upgrade at the quarterback position. I'm guessing we're going to get into that conversation later, Scott, because there are a lot of people out there who feel like Aiden O'Connell should be the guy next year. Now, that's again, we'll get into that.
We will.
But
We got some
I think, I think with Brock Bowers, you're looking at a 1,500-yard season if they had a better quarterback situation, a more stable quarterback situation.
Agree, 100%. And to your point about quarterback, Jaden Daniels, and we saw it Sunday night with that comeback win, right? I mean, what he was able to do, that pass, first of all, the Ertz catch was amazing. But I was sitting there watching with some friends of mine. The window in which Jaden Daniels threw that pass was unbelievable. And, of course, Jaden Daniels set a record, too. It was more than 100 yards rushing and 3 touchdown passes in the same game for a rookie quarterback. Never happened before. First time in NFL history, right? So, again, quarterback play. You can win with a good quarterback. But to elevate your team, you've seen what's happened in. I don't think people are talking about Washington enough, frankly, because what the turnaround you've seen. Why, Mo? Again, they didn't go out and spend a crap load on free agency. They got the quarterback, they got the coach, right, who brought in a good staff. And man, look now. Again, division I get, but look how they've turned things around there. And I think that's another example. Doesn't always work out, but that's another example of what the Raiders need to look at and how fast, because a lot of you out there don't think the Raiders can turn it. Oh, it's going to be 3 years. You could turn it around in a season or 2 at most if you make all the right moves. And that's really what it's going to come down to, Mo. It's going to come down to what this organization does in this offseason. I know people have been saying, well, you've been saying that for 25 years. Maybe, but now with what we're seeing in the NFL, what the Raiders do have on that roster, they can do it quickly. It's just the decisions that have to fall like dominoes.
Absolutely. And taking the Washington situation as an example, they don't have a perfect roster.
No.
Even last night, they had 2 offensive linemen go down and still win that football game. So I know a lot of people would say the Raiders should wait to get their quarterback until they build the rest of the roster. No. If you can get the quarterback of the future, get him now, because Washington didn't have a top offensive line. They have one reliable wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, and he didn't have a great game last night.
No, he didn't.
He didn't have a great game Sunday night. It was Zacchaeus who was catching a lot of the passes, and Zach Ertz who caught 2 touchdown passes. Zach Ertz is 34 years old. So they didn't have a young, spry tight end. They don't have a bunch of wide receivers. They don't have a top-tier offensive line. Their defense wasn't even great this year.
Right.
They had to trade Lattimore, and when they got him, he missed a couple of games.
Yeah.
So this team was far from perfect, and they get the quarterback, still get to the playoffs, win, 11 games. So for the people out there that say, oh, wait to get the quarterback until it's near perfect. Nope. Get the quarterback now, because it could change your future right away if you get the quarterback and the coaching staff right.
Yeah, and people will argue, well, there's no Jaden Daniels in this draft. Yeah, you don't know that. I mean, listen, I like Jaden Daniels. He was my favorite coming out. You guys know because you listen to the show. But I will tell you that if you believe it from an organizational standpoint that one of those guys, I'm not saying they do, but if they do, then you go get that guy as much as you can, or at least you try. But you're right, Mo. The quarterback turns everything around. If you don't believe that, then you're not watching a lot of football. And I'm not criticizing. I'm saying that if you watch football, you see it. And I'll use the example, too, of rosters not perfect, but how the quarterback changes things. There's been a lot of narrative this year about C.J. Stroud, one of our favorite guys here on the show. Well, he's fallen back. He's not as good as he was last year. Yeah, his offensive line is terrible. Terrible. I mean, I think there was one game he got sacked 8 times. Okay, but they're still in the playoff hunt. Why? Because he's a good quarterback. He's had all his wide receivers have been injured, brutally injured, and he still has them right there on the playoff cusp, right? And they couldn't even host a game in the playoffs, and their roster's not perfect. So I agree with you, Mo. Great point, man. Great point.
And I know this is a Raiders show, right? So this is a sore subject, but if you don't want to go to the extreme example of Jaden Daniels, look at within the division with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah,
they had to let go of Russell Wilson, so they were kneecapped with their cap space. They had limited cap space. They let go of a bunch of guys. There was turnover there, so the Denver Broncos didn't have a perfect roster. But guess what? They're 1 win away from getting into the playoffs and having 10 wins. Now, you can quibble about the quality of wins, but the point is, if you're the Raiders and you're a Raider fan, I assume you are listening to the show, you don't care how you get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
You just want to get there. Because then when you start winning football games, it starts to change a losing culture to say, we can now get to the playoffs and we can build on this. The Denver Broncos had a far from perfect situation. But guess what? They got the head coach position right. They bring in Bo Nix, and look at where they're headed toward, the playoffs in January.
Yeah, I do find it funny, though, that I see a lot of people criticizing who the Broncos have beaten. I also see that a lot from people who are criticizing the Chargers. Well, they had the second easiest schedule, but those same people are defending Antonio Pierce, saying, well, if he wins 3 in a row, yeah, you beat crappy teams. It's the same argument you're using.
You can't have it both ways. You can't have
it both ways. All right, we're going to take our final break here on Silver and Black today, the Tuesday edition. When we come back, we're getting to your calls, as usual, on the Raider Nation mailbag. We'll see what people have to say across the nation. Not only Raider Nation, but the United States. We'll find out. By the way, it is New Year's Eve, so happy New Year to you and yours, since we will not be around tomorrow on New Year's Day. Make sure, again, I remind people this every year around the holidays, if you're going out and having a good time, do not drive. Okay? There's too many reasons to not do that. You have opportunity, whether it's a ride share, whether it's Uber, whether it's cabs, whether it's friends, whatever. Even Mothers Against Drunk Driving has free rides. Don't do it. Just don't ruin your life and ruin somebody else's life and perhaps take a life by drinking and driving on New Year's Eve. So make sure you do that. All right, we're going to take this break. We're coming back, and we're getting to your calls. It's Scott, it's Mo, it's Silver and Black today. Sponsored on video by our good friends at BetUS.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right, welcome back. The home stretch here on Silver and Black Today, Tuesday edition. Moten, Scott Gulbransen back with you. Hope you guys had a good Christmas again and have a safe and sane New Year's Eve tonight. Enjoy it. 2025, Mo. Wow. This keeps ticking by, man. Time is undefeated.
Yeah, I was just telling my Bleacher Report live audience that was my last 2024 show, and that the next show I do on Bleacher Report Live will be Wednesday on New Year's Day, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. And I just told Raider fans, I just think, first of all, I just thank them for sticking with me throughout a tough season, because in our audience, obviously too.
Yeah.
It's hard. I understand, as a fan of a team, it's hard to stick by your team and follow your team through just a crap season.
Yeah.
For, I'm not going to use explicatives because kids are listening, but it was a what season. And to go through a double-digit loss stretch, and for people to still listen to me and listen to us on this show, just shout out to the fans for sticking with us, because we know it's difficult. The off season is going to be much more intriguing because there are so many things, so many questions to answer. Antonio Pierce back. Report came out that Patrick Graham declined an extension, so he's going to be a free agent in the off season. Tom Brady's role. We're assuming Scott Turner is going to be gone regardless, because Bill Belichick wants him on his staff at North Carolina. Quarterback situation, draft position. The offseason is going to, for the crap season that we had to go through, the Raiders offseason is going to be, every week is going to be a new hot topic.
It is. It's going to be fun. It will keep us busy, no doubt. And I agree with you. I want to echo the sentiments to thank our audience for sticking with us. Some people, I think, check out the more casual fans, and that's okay too. They'll be back. I'm not worried about that. But I think that we have seen our audience here grow. We've not only seen it grow, but we've seen so much more engagement. I mean, the messages you and I get individually and the messages the show gets, it really shows people have, I think, those that want to hear the truth and get some objective analysis, no matter how much they love their team, I think have appreciated it, especially during a tough year. So thank you all for being with us, and we look forward to taking you into 2025 as well. Okay, we're going to get right to the calls. Our good friend we haven't heard from in a little bit. It's MDM out in Hawaii. Here is MDM.
Hey, aloha, Scott and Mo. Hope you guys had a good Christmas and enjoyed your weekend. This is MDM. Just a couple quick things. One, when I'm looking at the Raiders, one thing I'm noticing with them as an organization, they seem to operate on emotion. And what do I mean by that? They just kind of, in the moment, seem to make decisions. Classic point was hiring AP. The players wanted him. A lot of fans were clamoring for him. And they kind of gave in and made that hire, which I didn't think was a very smart hire. As I said, to do whatever you can do to get Harbaugh. And, we see how that's going. And then another thing is we went against the Jaguars. And I guess Mark was all excited, high-fiving people because it felt good in the moment. And I think as an organization, man, we need to start looking long-term. I get it. You can't tell people to lose games. And I'm also wondering if there's kind of a rift right now between AP and the organization where AP is trying to win every last meaningless game. And maybe there are those that say, hey, we got to start pulling up for next year. I personally would have, if I was in charge of the organization, I would have said this year is toast. We're going to play all our young players. We're going to see what we got as a backup in Carter Bradley. We're going to, play a lot of young players that we drafted. I know they're doing that somewhat. But, I would have looked the next year. And as far as the quarterback is concerned, we all know we need a quarterback. I watched some of the games last few days. Really wasn't impressed by Sanders. I liked Ward. Ward looked pretty darn good. And he seems like he has a much stronger arm. I saw him go through some progressions. A lot of people are saying Dylan Gabriel. That guy does not go through his progressions very well. I encourage you to watch him. I'm going to call it early. I'm going to actually say they're going to get upset by Ohio State. I'm also picking Texas, Penn State, and, my brain's not working on the other one right in Georgia.
No.
So we'll see how that turns out. But I'm not loving these quarterbacks this year. I don't think we should mortgage the farm to trade up for any of them. Just a thought that many people might argue with. But what if we traded this first-round pick this year for a first-round pick next year's draft and an extra maybe second and third, or see how that goes, and we could fill our need and build up our picks for next year. I don't think this is the draft to get a quarterback. Yes, it sucks. We need a quarterback. But maybe we build up that offensive line a little bit more, get another wide receiver, and have a good foundation for the quarterback that comes the following year. So that's just a thought. The Raiders continue to disappoint me, but it is what it is.
All right, there's MDM in Hawaii. Mo, your comments on the emotional decision making.
I think he's correct, and I think we hit on this on the show that the process from the get-go was flawed. And I have a piece on Bleacher Report that ran on Monday. 8 most regrettable decisions from the 2024 season. I had the Raiders up there hiring Antonio Pierce and specifically skimping on the hiring process. So, again, they interviewed Leslie Frazier and Chris Richard. Can you honestly, even if you're in favor of the Antonio Pierce hire, can you honestly say that was the best pool of candidates to go against Antonio Pierce for the job? Absolutely not. So the decision was predetermined, and it was basically a formality that Pierce was going to get the job. And it was based, in my opinion, based on a lot of the sentiment from the locker room. The players liked the energy that Pierce brought after they fired Josh McDaniels. They're smoking cigars. Everyone's chummy. Everyone loves each other. And they go and they basically get to Mark Davis, and Mark Davis goes, well, the players love him. And if I don't hire this guy full time, I may have a lot of disgruntled key players, star players in my locker room. And guess what? 2 of the most loudest people who were vouching for Antonio Pierce are no longer with the team. Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
Kudos to Max Crosby for sticking it out. He stayed 10 toes down fine. But when you listen to the players, just understand players come and go, right? They want new deals. All of a sudden, they want to go somewhere else. They're not happy. All of a sudden, they want to go somewhere else. So it was a big mistake as MDM said, to be emotional and you pointed this out too, Scott, throughout the year, that Mark Davis is a little too close to the players. Not a little, he is too close to the players, a lot. And when that sways your decisions, you can make a lot of the wrong decisions. And that's why Tom Brady doesn't have any experience building a football team. I get that. We don't know how good he is at making these decisions. At least it's someone who's a little more removed from being too close to the players and making decisions based on their sentiments.
And Brady's a stone cold killer. I mean, if you watch the video of him as a player, right, even as a player, the personality, the desire to win, he is cold. Yeah, he might be off the field, your teammate and your friend, but on the field, he's going to rip your you know what if you don't do what you're supposed to. That's what you need. You need a cold, decision-making animal to make these decisions, including on players. I love Max Crosby. I don't think the Raiders should trade Max Crosby. If Max Crosby wants to get out because they hire a different coach or whatever it is, then you do what you got to do, right? Everybody is replaceable. Very few players in the history of the NFL are guys that you'd say, okay, you can never trade that guy. Okay, I know it comes along that way, and Max Crosby is a great, great, great player. But you have to have somebody who can make cold stone decisions based on business, based on football. Mark Davis needs a buffer. So I agree with MDM. One last thing, though, too. He said don't mortgage the farm for any of these quarterbacks. While those of us on the outside might agree with that, what is mortgaging the farm? Wait till next year. Next year's class, I say surefire, where there's no such thing. The best quarterbacks you have is Arch Manning out of Texas. We'll see. And you have Nico Amaleva from Tennessee, and I just butchered his name, and that's sort of it. Then you have Sellers, Nussmeier. Like, it's not, is it better than this year's class overall? Yes. But are any of those guys screaming at you? I don't think so. And again, Mo, if they evaluate and love one of these guys, you pay whatever it takes.
Absolutely. If your scouting department, your GM are all in on a quarterback prospect, you take that guy. There's a clip that's floating around that I've reposted multiple times of Brendan Beane, GM of the Bills, talking about when they traded up for Josh Allen. Now, of course, in hindsight, it's easy to say, well, Josh Allen was definitely worth trading up for. But at the time, when the Bills made that move, he talked about the criticism they took for moving up for Josh Allen, coming out of Wyoming with a low completion rate. All of those things were talked about. And the Bills still traded up because they believed in him as a prospect. So while Josh Allen is now known as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, at that time in 2018 when he was drafted, people were saying, oh, this guy's going to be a bust. And look at where it got the Bills. So all I'm saying is we're all going to have our opinions. MDM, Scott, myself, everyone is going to have their opinions. But if the Raiders really believe in one of these prospects in this class, you go get it.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again to MDM. Now we're going out to Felix in Orange County, California. Here's Felix.
Hey, Scott and Mo. Felix from Orange County over here. Just calling in. Looks like we're beating the Saints this week. Only 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but I don't know. It doesn't. I know we got the win column, but it doesn't feel like we're winning. I like the play we're seeing. Players look good. Aiden O'Connell seems like he's connected real well with Trey Tucker and everything, but unlike last year where we picked it up a lot towards the end of the year, I don't believe it. I don't believe the team is there or something. I don't know. It's not the same feeling I got from last year where I got a bunch of positivity and good morale and the big old boost from the wins at the end of the season. But I feel like this year it's more detrimental now because now we're not even in the top 5. We're sitting at 6, but now with another win, I don't know where we're gonna go. So I guess I want to ask you guys where are we looking like in the draft order, and who are we looking like we're going to be able to pick in that spot? Because I don't know if a quarterback's going to land yet. Cam Ward came out of his college game at halftime, but I don't know. We might be lucky, I guess, to get Jackson Dart in the second, third round or something, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think.
All right, there's Felix in Orange County. Thanks for the call, Felix. We appreciate it. As of recording of the show, the Raiders sit at number 8, right? And teams ahead of them that need quarterbacks. That's what I focus on too. Is the Jets at number 7, perhaps, right? Then you have the New York Giants at number 4. You have Cleveland at number 3. Then at 1 and 2 is Tennessee, New England, and I could see both those teams trading back, Mo, with a team that needs a quarterback. So then you have below the Raiders in the top 12-ish, everybody, until you get down to Dallas at 13, some other teams that need quarterbacks. But yeah, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to pay a price there. But if I look at this situation, Mo, with the Raiders at number 8, if they want one of those 2 top quarterbacks, definitely have to find somebody to trade up with. If not, then yeah, you're looking at a low first round, second round, even into the third round if you're going to get a young quarterback, which I think they should do either way.
I'll talk about the other part of this is, well, who do you get in that spot at 8? And it's hard to really say because you don't really I've taken a look at a lot of these top draft analysts say, and I'm going to dig into the draft class myself and have my own opinion, but a lot of these top draft analysts are now saying that there are only about a handful of guys who are, going to be like blue chip prospects.
Right.
And then after the top 5 or 6 guys, then it's a drop off and it's like, well, basically a crapshoot from there. So the easy answer is BPA because that's what worked for the Raiders this year with Brock Bowers. But as far I saw a mock draft recently where the Raiders were taking Luther Burden III out of Missouri, the wide receiver. So if Luther Burden III is the best prospect on the Raiders board, that's who they go with. I would still hold out hope that Ajanti is there when they pick out of Boise State, the running back, because that would be a home run, in my opinion, for the Raiders, even though there are people out there to say you don't want to go with a running back that early. You think the Detroit Lions are regretting drafting Jahmyr Gibbs early in the first round? Absolutely not. I remember when the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, it was heavily criticized. You don't take a running back that early. It's poor value, blah, blah, blah. But the Detroit Lions were building their team a certain way, and Jahmyr Gibbs fit into the blueprint of what they were doing. So with the Raiders, not just because running back is a need, but I think Ashton would be a great pick if he is available at 8. Now, that could be a stretch because he's that good. He may go in the top 5, top 6, but if he's there, you definitely.
It's interesting how the draft is falling now because I think Sanders and Ward and Hunter are going to be 1 through 3 in whatever order you want to figure it out. But you look then, if you're the Raiders, to your point about running back, what would you take the Raiders? I saw a couple mock drafts that had them taking Will Johnson, who's the cornerback out of Michigan. Jalen Walker is a defensive end out of Georgia. You also have Kelvin Banks at Texas as an offensive tackle, if you want to go that direction. There's also Mason Graham out of Michigan, also inside defensive lineman. There's a lot of guys there, Mo. To your point, though, if they can't do the quarterback situation, then it just becomes, to your point, who do you have listed based on best player available, but also need, right? You could argue, even though the Brock Bowers thing surprised us last year because of Michael Mayer, he was such a special player. It didn't matter that you just drafted a tight end the year before. This guy was so good, and they clearly saw that, as did so many others, and that makes sense. So if Genty is that guy, then yes, you take him. If not, then you start to look at the best player available based on your needs. So we'll see. And it's going to be a heated discussion as we move forward. So good stuff. And Felix, great call. We appreciate it. All right, now it's time for Dave Casper the Ghost. We haven't heard from him for a while. Here he is.
Hey, guys. This is Dave Casper the Ghost from upstate New York. It's been a few weeks, but I figured I'd throw my 2 cents in after the Raiders won their second game in a row. Look, as being a Raider fan for 40-something years, I have been rooting for them to lose. Because for me, there is no difference between this team going 2-15 or 4-13 or 3-14. It all doesn't make a difference to me personally. Draft positioning, building this team for the future is what's most important to me. My fear of them winning these games against meaningless backup quarterbacks, meaningless bad teams, is that it's going to give a false sense of maybe confidence in AP keeping his job. And I think that would be the worst decision for this organization. I have seen nothing yet from him to warrant him getting a second chance. Yes, they play hard for him. Yes, they don't quit on him. But that's not reason enough for you to keep your job as a coach. They beat a terrible Saints team and a terrible Jacksonville team. Let's not go crazy on. But if you look at all his wins, even going back to last year, he really only has 2 quality wins against the Ravens and against the Chiefs. 4 of the 5 wins last year were against backup quarterbacks, and they didn't beat anyone. They beat Cleveland and the Saints and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anyway, long story short, I really hope that Brady has a say in this. I hope that the rumors that Vrabel or someone, I personally like Brady from the Buffalo Bills, the OC from Buffalo Bills. I know Mo likes Cohen. I'd be fine with him too. I think this team needs to be restructured, and the coaching staff needs to be redone. In terms of drafts, well, now they're picking 8th, so I guess we're out of the Sanders Ward sweepstakes unless they make a significant trade to move up. But going forward, they still need to get a quarterback from this draft. Look at this day 2 quarterbacks. But anyway, I'm rambling. For me, this was a meaningless win. They beat a terrible team with the backup quarterback with no weapons on offense. Yes, they played well. They beat the Saints handily, but I just want the season to end. I want Black Monday to roll around, and I'm praying to the football gods that they remove this coaching staff and start afresh. All right, guys, happy holidays. See you later.
Dave Casper the Ghost, upstate New York. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate that very much. Mo, he brings up a good point, and I think there's a mix, right? So teams, first of all, I don't think teams tank on purpose. Yes, you could say, hey, you know what? We're out of the playoffs. We're going to start playing our younger guys. If the organization, the difference with that, and I'm going to use the New York Giants as an example, because on Sunday, what did the Giants do? They had the first pick in the draft, and what did they do? They went out and they won. They scored 45 points. Why? Brian Dable's fighting for his job. The Raiders, Antonio Pierce. You cannot go to a coach that doesn't have a guarantee of coming back, I should say, and say, hey, coach, we're not going to give you the sign of confidence or the vote of confidence, but we want you to lose. What? Okay, so you're not going to tell me I'm coming back, but you want me to lose games, and then if we lose games, let's say we lost out, and get the first pick of the draft, and you say, hey, see ya, you're gone. Right? I mean, I think that's the key ingredient there.
Yeah, and I've been saying this all along. If you're a head coach who doesn't have the assurance that you're going to be back, there's no way you're going to be on board with playing a bunch of backups. I do get that general managers do this, and it's because they have long-term security, or at least short-term security, that they're going to be there next year to make those picks in the following season. But even if Tom Telesco went to Antonio Pierce and said, hey, this is a lost season, you should play some backups, I would imagine Antonio Pierce would like to screw yourself. I need to save my job. I'm not playing a bunch of backups. So, I mean, the logic, people are not going to do things against their best interests. I think that's the point there. Now, as far as Dave Casper the Ghost call about the Raiders and Antonio Pierce, and I think he agrees with us on this one, and I think he worded it perfectly. False sense of confidence after beating bad teams with backup quarterbacks. A win is a win, I get it, but you have to put it into context. And to go back to what I said in the first segment, you're chasing the Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, and now the Broncos in charge in your division. You're not chasing the Jaguars and their backup quarterback and the Saints and their rookie backup quarterback. You're not if you're chasing that, Antonio Pierce is great for the job. But if you want to be a playoff team and you want to win double-digit games and be a perennial playoff contender, that is not enough for Antonio Pierce to keep his job. I've said this on Bleacher Report Live, said it here. Dave Casper the Ghost has said it. You said it. And I think we all agree.
Right. And remember, the 2 out of the 3 teams that they've beaten, with the exception of Baltimore, are going to have new coaches next year. I mean, the Saints already fired their coach, of course, former Raider coach. But then the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's no way Peterson survives this season. I just don't think it'll happen. So that puts it into context as well. All right, Dave, appreciate the call, my man. And we're going to close out the show with the infamous, or the famous, however you want to put it, Jacob from Fresno. Let's see what Jacob has to say after this big Raider win.
Gulbransen, and maybe down Moten, or if you're playing this for the post-game show. What's up, Murph? This is Jacob from Fresno. I don't know what you're going to do. Last show you mentioned something along those lines. I don't know if you're taking live calls, but either way, regardless, we beat the Saints. Right right now we're still playing them. As I'm looking, it's 25-10. I'm hoping we could break that 30 that we haven't done all year. That would be pretty neat. But even so, this was a pretty good game. I'd have to say our team showed a lot of promise. And let's be frank, a roster that's not super talented. Now, we've got a couple bright spots with Chase on, right? And Bowers, clearly. I mean, you should say Bowers before everybody, right? We got Crosby, who's out, right? But he's coming back. We got Wilkins, who's coming back. And, you know, we don't know what the future holds, but it looks like the Giants are winning. So it doesn't look like a quarterback-needy team is going to be first as long as, you know, plays out the same throughout the last week of the season. So we're in a good spot. The future of the Raiders is not panic-worthy, guys. We're in a spot where there is redemption. There is a possibility to see the greatness of the Raiders in its future. So there's some hope with that in mind. With all that in mind, Antonio Pierce, right? And I know you guys are going to say, look at the rest of the season, Jake, but today, this game, and the games where we played like the Falcons, or who did we just beat last week? We played the Jaguars, right? When we've played teams with talent comparable to our own roster, we've played some pretty good football for what you would expect of this team, right? And so what I'm saying is, if I sign AP to a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract, multiple years, he's signed past this year, and I see the season that he's put on the field, you know, his resume on the grass. I know you guys like to throw that back at him, but if I see what he's done this year, and I've already given him 2 years, I don't see enough to terminate that contract. I see enough to where I'd say if he's 1 year, yeah, he hasn't really done much to show promise, so I'm not going to give him another year. I'm not going to terminate the agreement we've already made, right? And so I think the AP deserves another shot. I know that I'm in the minority at this point of the season, but I just believe in him. I know I saw something last year, and I'm not ready to just give up on that, Raider Nation. I'm not ready to give up on that, guys. So I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Happy holidays. Happy New Year's. God bless you, and go Raiders.
All right, there's Jacob. Jacob, thanks for the call, man, and I appreciate the optimism. And yes, I completely 100% disagree with almost everything you said about Antonio Pierce. I mean, everything. He's shown nothing because they beat Spencer Rattler and Mac Jones. I mean, dude, when they play, you said play rosters comparable. Yes, we're with shitty quarterbacks. Yes, when they play shitty quarterbacks, they can win. So I get what you're saying, and I know, listen, again, I understand why people like Antonio Pierce as a guy. There's a lot to like there. I've said it over and over and over again. Where people come on, and Mo, I've seen people say it to you on X, hater. Same with O'Connell, right? Even though we made O'Connell t-shirts on this show when we dubbed him the Irish Cannon and gave it that to charity, right? We like Aiden O'Connell, said we want him to be a Raider, we want him to be a backup. But we're haters. So, no, I get it, Jacob. I just completely disagree. Mo, we've talked ad nauseum about why. So I'm not sure what Jacob sees. I'm glad that he's an optimist, though, because we need more of them in the world.
I think, and I don't, I want to be careful how I say this. This isn't directed directly at Jacob.
Right.
But I think a lot of fans view things in the moment. So in the moment, the Raiders have won back-to-back games. Regardless of who they beat, it feels good to win.
Still wins.
Right?
Yeah.
The team looks great. They just play, in my opinion, their best game of the season. And you're thinking, man, if we just get a better quarterback, if we just plug a few holes, then this comparable team to other bad teams could be comparable to some of the better teams. I think that's the point Jacob was making. As the roster gets better, if they're comparable to teams now the way they are, they can be even more they can be comparable to better football opponents with a better roster. Get a quarterback, add a cornerback, add a running back. Then AP will be able to compete. AP and the Raiders will be able to compete against playoff caliber teams. I think that's the sentiment that Jacob was trying to get across. The problem is now AP's been around for a year and a half now. And as Dave Casper said, where are the quality wins other than Kansas City and Baltimore? You know, you have to look at the big picture and say, do you trust AP? Again, I go back to this question. I've been on this question since the offseason. Do you trust AP and his staff to develop a young quarterback in an offense? And I would say no, and that's the biggest reason why I wouldn't bring him back. So in my opinion, a lot of people would agree with me on this. The Raiders picked the wrong quarterback to start the season. We know they picked the wrong offensive coordinator because AP fired him. We know they picked the wrong offensive line coach because AP fired him. We know they picked the wrong quarterback coach because AP fired him. So with all of these mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, how can you have any confidence that AP and his coaching staff is all of a sudden going to make all the right decisions or most of the right decisions when you bring in a young quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterbacks coach, a new offensive line coach possibly, and replacing other assistants?
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but listen, I agree with them. I think the Raiders, and you said it early in the show, Mo, I thought they played their best, most complete game against the Saints. Doesn't matter who the Saints are. They just did. So that means execution, all that. But also, you can't overlook the mistakes, too. The first half with the timeouts and time management. Antonio Pierce cannot manage games well. He still can't. We're almost at the end of the season, and it still pops up. We've seen special teams degrade. We had an extra point blocked on Sunday. I think that's the third game in a row with kicks blocked, right? So all of these signs. So I'm not saying that there hasn't been positive, because there is. But you have to your point, Mo, you have to weigh both together. All right, Jacob, thanks again, man. We appreciate the call as always. And we appreciate all of you being with us. That's going to wrap up this edition of Silver and Black today. Mo, real quick before we go, we got a couple minutes. Let everybody know. I know you got something going on New Year's Day. Let everybody know what's going on in the world of Midtown Mo.
As I said, New Year's Day, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. It is my last midweek show. I'll be moving to the prime time slot. After that, I'll be on at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. After that, on weekdays in the off season, Monday through Wednesday. So that is the last midweek show. And I'll have an article up on Sports Not talking about or discussing Antonio Pierce and Aiden O'Connell basically taking their last swings, making their final cases to be in prominent positions next year. Whether you agree or disagree with the sentiment or not, there are people out there that believe Aiden O'Connell has done enough to be the starting quarterback in week 1. And Antonio Pierce has done enough to be the Raiders head coach in 2025. I'll break down both sides of that in the Sports Not piece this week.
Yes, and those people, because they've messaged me and tweeted at me that Aiden O'Connell's the guy. My New Year's resolution for you is to watch more football.
Oh my God.
So you could come around and see what we're talking about. But anyway, all right, Mo, I appreciate it, man. And don't forget, we will be back on Thursday and with a same day show after the holiday. So please do that. If you don't already subscribe to the show, do so. Wherever you get your audio, don't forget to rate and review. Follow Mo at Moten, Moemoton on X. I am at LV Gully. The show is SNB Today. And don't forget the great offer, while you still can, before those big games tomorrow, the playoff games today and tomorrow, actually. Get your promo code YouTube150. That's 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 from the great folks at BetUS. Don't forget to do that so you can make a little extra dough with Mo. Oh, sorry, it rhymed. I just wanted to spit it out there. So there you go.
3-0 this week on my public. 3-0 with my public bets with BetUS this week. 3-0. Just saying.
There you go.
Keep an eye out for those bets.
All right, my friend. I will see you next time.
Talk to you soon, Scott. Talk to you soon, Raider Nation.
All right. For our producer, Mike Robier, for Moten, I'm Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. Have a great, and again, safe New Year's Eve. If you drink and drive, you're going to be in big trouble, and you might end lives, including your own. So don't do it. Make sure you get somebody to help you out, and we appreciate it. We will see you in 2025. Take care, everybody.